Welcome back to the Beyond the Years podcast, a podcast about all things Disney.
You are listening to episode 14. Today we're going to be talking about Miss Marvel episode 4. Josh is definitely the content expert on this one, although I did watch the show. Before we get started...
On a Wednesday.
Yeah, guys, we watched it on Wednesday. How amazing is that?
And we're recording on a Wednesday night.
I know. We've got it together this week.
Yeah. And we recorded another podcast before this.
We're killing it. Killing it this week.
Yeah.
So before we get started, we just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting and listening to the show so far. We really do appreciate you. To help us get out there, please share the podcast with your friends. Give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Statistically speaking, a lot of podcasts are not successful this early on. So just help us out. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So the goal is to make it to episode 21. And that's kind of the 1% of podcasts. If podcasts make it past 21 episodes, then they continue and they'll see continuous growth. So the goal is to get to episode 21, have a celebration, and then keep going.
Yeah.
So
heck yeah, we got so many ideas. So
yeah, there's a lot of things in the pipeline here. So we really appreciate if you guys share with your friends and let everyone know, hey, these two are okay to listen to. You should check them out.
Yeah.
No, we really do hope you guys like the podcast because we really do try to give it our all every time we do this. So it would really help out, and we would really appreciate if you gave us a like and share and keep listening to the show.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Thank you so far.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start talking about the episode. Definitely Josh leading this episode because I'm kind of lost here.
Why are you lost?
I don't know.
Let's not just go through the episode step by step. Let's just start asking me questions and I'll answer. Then we can kind of go through the episode as we talk about it.
I'm just trying to figure out how I feel about the show.
Okay.
Because I think I was not excited to watch it today.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like they could have combined part of episode 1 and 2 and part of episode 2 and 3. And then this episode could have been number 3 instead of number 4. I feel like it's just a little bit too slow. It's taken us too long to get to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
The second half of this episode, especially, I was excited. I'm excited to watch it next week now, but it didn't get me excited to watch it this week.
No, I get that. It has been a slow building show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an origin story for a character, and if we're gonna talk about how the show is, it's not geared towards late 20 something people.
Yeah.
I mean, this is more Marvel has been really good for the past pretty much all the shows that they've had so far.
Mm-hmm.
As a show that pretty much everyone can watch, or a movie that everyone can watch and enjoy.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to genres of a specific group of people are gonna like Moon Knight because it's a little bit darker than a kid's gonna like it. I mean, some kids might, but Miss Marvel is geared towards a really specific audience, specifically Pakistani or Muslim Americans.
Mm-hmm.
That are teenagers. So and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, getting that representation.
Yeah, and it's just not everyone's going to click with that, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just a casual fan, if you're mega fans like us, you're going to watch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to know oh man, did you remember in Miss Marvel when this happened? And they're oh my God, that totally connects to blank, 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 blank.
And we got a Scott Lang Easter egg in here.
Scott Lang Easter egg with Ant-Man on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And So that she ends up traveling to Karachi,
Which is in Pakistan.
Yep. And
Her whole
pretty much where we left off on episode 3 was the grandma saying, come to Karachi, come to Karachi. Did you see the train in your your vision? Because the grandma saw it too. But the grandma, we find out, has worn the bangle. And that's how she found her way to her father during the
like the big
the
partition.
mass exodus. Yeah, the partition. Yeah. So it was really interesting. And I loved how, well, first off, when they're on the plane, Muneeba and Kamala have Muneeba's like, you're grounded for a long time because you ruined your brother's wedding. But however, since we're going to visit your grandma, we're going to call a truce.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely love Muneeba.
Me too.
Every time she's on screen, I don't know, there's just something really warm and I don't know. She's just a really great character, and I like the actress that plays her too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she does a great job.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
really, I really like the character. At first, I didn't. I think, and it was just because she was so overbearing, but she's overbearing, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just different, and I really like the character.
Mm-hmm. So they go to Karachi, Pakistan, and then they get to meet the grandma and some cousins.
Yep. Yeah, because it sounds like most of her family is based out of Karachi or somewhere in Pakistan. And Muneeba and her family sounds like they're the only ones that live in America, from what I got. Other than, I don't know. I guess that's what
we know so far. Yeah.
Because that's why Muneeba left Karachi, is to kind of get away from her mother and all of the gossip of the area, I guess, is kind of what we get later on in the episode. Mm-hmm. But we get Kamala gets the who's who of Karachi, Pakistan. Mm-hmm. She gets to meet a couple different people. And what I also thought was interesting was they were at that golf club or that little seaport diner area. It was the fancy place. And they said, the lady walked up and she was like, oh, Kamala, nice to meet you. Kamala, not a Pakistani name. And she's like, oh, Muneeba was always a rebel. and then Muneeba changes the subject really quick. Yeah. So there's definitely something there with Muneeba that she's not telling Kamala. Mm-hmm. And I want to know what that was.
Well, I mean, the fact that in the first episode when she received the bangle as a gift and how quickly Muneeba kind of took it away and hid it, she knows something. Yeah.
She said that's brought a curse to this family for a long time and get rid of it kind of thing. Yeah. But okay. So what are your other questions and what are your thoughts about this episode? Because you're obviously you're not the biggest fan of the show, or not biggest fan, but you're iffy about the show. So what did you like and what didn't you like about this episode?
Well, I mean, I liked this episode was probably my favorite. I was excited to see it set in Pakistan instead of in Jersey. Yeah. I just like the cultural aspect of it. I felt it just felt more in place. Because maybe that's because that's where all of the history of her family and the history of the bangle, it's all here. Yeah. And so we're finally here. And so that's exciting. I thought Kamala has kind of come into her own a little bit more, especially with her powers. So
she's not such a needy teenager in this episode. More of a she's just a lot more mature in one episode difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, she's not surrounded. I think teenagers act differently when they're around their family versus when they're around their peers and their friends. So we're in Pakistan. She doesn't have her friends or anyone her
Yeah,
age,
that comfort blanket.
she's got her family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's kind of forced a little bit, I guess, out of her comfort zone. I don't know how long it's been since she's been to Pakistan, or if she's been.
It sounds like it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm. So she's kind of forced to come into her own on this one. And then we get we get a couple of really good fight scenes. So we're introduced to Kareem, the Red Dagger.
The Red Daggers, yep.
The Red Daggers. Kareem and Waleed.
Waleed, yeah.
So Kareem
Waleed,
actually kind of... So let me back up. Kamala is looking at a mural on the wall in the streets of Ant-Man.
Yeah, it's just like a graffiti painting kind of thing.
And then this knife kind of whisks by her head and lands on the wall. And she's like, oh my God, what is happening? And it's Kareem, which we don't know anything about him at the time.
Yeah.
And
new character.
Yeah. And they just have this fight scene. And she's like, how did you know? And he said he sensed the Noor, the light. He's wearing like a face mask to cover the bottom half of his face. I think that's like a traditional traditional
I don't know, a scarf is what they called it.
Okay. And so it's covering the bottom half of his face, so we can't really see who he is. And I believe, did she put her mask on?
She did when she started fighting him, yes.
Okay. And then they had like a pretty decent fight scene there where she was more confident in her powers and she relied more on him instead of just like hiding and running away. Like she kind of fought back on this one and used her light. Yeah. Which was good.
Yeah. Whenever she's running around and she like uses it as like a step.
Yeah.
And like when she's falling, she's using it as like a platform to catch herself. It's super interesting. Yeah. Because I'm like, whoa, like, she's out of her element, I guess, of being like in her comfort zone, like we talked about. Yeah. And it's like, boom, she's out of nowhere. She's like, oh, and then maybe it's more of like instincts kicking in. And maybe the more like she connects with the bangle, like it not reads her mind, but like it knows more what she wants. You know what I mean?
I'm not really sure. There's probably a million reasons why she's kind of come into her own here, but I was glad to see it. Yeah. So he's kind of introduced very quickly. They have a quick fight scene, and then they kind of just stop and they start talking a little bit.
Yeah, because he realizes that he's not one of the clandestine people that is hunting Kamala from the last episode. And he's like, "You're not one of them?" And she's like, "No." And then he realizes like, "Oh my gosh, you've got the bangle. Come with me." They go to this like diner or like kitchen area, and then they go like into this like secret hallway, secret tunnel into this like whole area where we meet Waleed. And like my favorite character of this episode.
I know, he was so cool.
So I guess he's like the leader, I'm assuming, of the Red Daggers at this point, because he shows like this map and he's like, listen, your grandmother comes from my gosh, I can't even think of what it's called now. Is it the Noor?
The Noor.
Is that what they called it? Yeah.
The Noor dimension?
The Noor dimension, yeah. And he's got like an old school map of like
the world.
And then he's got this like mechanical metal thing in front of it, and he like turns it on and it shows like their dimension and our dimension, which there's always like, oh man, what is this? Because like as a Marvel fan, I'm thinking like, oh man, what could this be? Like I'm counting all the like, I'm assuming like countries that are in this dimension and trying to figure out like what is what, or like is that like a country, or is that like another realm? Like I don't know what's happening. I've got kind of a theory, but I'll kind of say that at the end.
Okay.
But Yeah, super interesting. And then he pulls this other lever, and like this square aquarium tank pops up, and it shows the Nor dimension. And he explains, like, the red daggers are here to protect against the clandestines and make sure that they don't bring their world into our world, because their world, if they get the bangle and they break open their dimension into our dimension, their dimension will take over ours, like, relatively fast. So that's what, like, their purpose is. So we get, like, a whole scene about that, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would say that was probably my favorite scene in the show, at least in this episode. It reminded me a lot of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to, because
Yeah.
we're talking about different dimensions, but it just kind of felt like, to me, it was like a parallel of like the Ancient One, and Waleed was like a parallel to the Ancient One.
Yeah.
And then she kind of felt like Doctor Strange in this moment. But
Yeah. Well, and I also got like Shang-Chi vibes.
Yeah.
Because they go to the Talo, that whole nother dimension.
Right.
In our world.
We need to watch Shang-Chi again.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is really good. But that was like one of the parallels. I'm like, oh man, like, is this Nor dimension, like, is this part of like a different area of Talo? Like, are these all connected, kind of thing? And like, my theory, I'll just go ahead and say it now. I'm not going to wait, because
I'm
since you
curious.
brought that up, my theory is that the MCU is doing their own version of the 7 cities of heaven. So it's pretty much just 7 dimensions.
Okay.
I don't know all of them, but Kunlun, which is from Iron Fist, I know that's one of them. And there's a few others, and they have, like, I think every 88 years, all these dimensions line up, and they have like a giant tournament of champions kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think it's called the Tournament of Heaven. And
That's
like
crazy.
they battle to see who's the best. So like Iron Fist is one of those guys that does that. So far in the MCU, we've got this Nor dimension. We've got Talo. Technically, since Charlie Cox is in the MCU, we can say that Iron Fist is part of the MCU, whether you like it or not. I'm going to say it is at this moment because it works with my theory.
Okay.
And Kunlun, that is another dimension. So that's 3 dimensions that I've said so far. That could be part of these seven cities of heaven. So it could be like they could just be reshaping like an idea from the comics, but renaming all the cities.
That sounds pretty dang cool. Do you think that they would do like a TV show or like a movie?
I'm not sure. I think we'll have to have more like cities. I don't know if they're gonna make like a show about the 7 cities of heaven. Like, I mean, they could, I guess, but I think it'd be more interesting to have them all connected through the movies, and then maybe that be like an Avengers level threat movie kind of thing, or the Avengers get involved with it. And that's just something like, I'm not saying it could happen, but I don't know. It could be interesting. I feel like I'm dragging along this too far, so let's get.
I mean, it's definitely cool.
No, it is.
We'll see.
That's just one of the theories that I have.
Marvel is like, it is so crazy to think about 10 years ago where we were. And at the time, we thought it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And back then, it was very basic superhero stuff.
Yeah, it was
just like
Avengers. It was the first Avengers movie.
Yeah, bad guy, we save the world, right? And now it's like we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Like, there's different dimensions. We have different versions of all of the superheroes potentially.
Yep.
And it's like, endless possibilities.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So I cannot wait for the next few years
Oh yeah.
of Marvel.
So much Marvel content.
Oh
too.
my gosh.
But back to the episode. He shows her the map. He pretty much tells her what happens. Then we go back to like her grandma's place, and I don't remember what all happens, but we end up back like it's like a pretty short scene of like I think Kamala talking to her grandma about like, the light and
Yeah, so let me present this to the listeners here
okay.
of how I got to watch the second half of this episode. So I watched the first half earlier today, uninterrupted, full attention.
Mm-hmm.
I checked my phone, and then the daycare had posted some pictures of Grayson crying, and it upset me. So I went to go pick him up early. And then I finished the episode with him here tonight. We legit paused it.
Oh, so many times.
I don't even know how many times.
I turned the closed captions on so Ashley could like pay attention, and I hate closed captions.
Well, I mean, like I would pay attention every time it was playing, but I mean, the kid pooped like 3 times in the last 15 minutes of the show, which ended up turning into like an hour-long ordeal. He pooped like 3 times. We were eating dinner.
Yeah, tonight was an interesting evening of like what was happening.
It wasn't bad at all, but
No.
it was just very like, okay, play it. Okay,
Yeah.
stop. Okay, play it. Okay, pause it. I think he's pooping. And it was like,
Well, and the only reason, well, I was like, are we gonna finish? Are you gonna watch Miss Marvel?
yeah.
And you're like, I started it earlier and I had paused it after the daycare sent that text. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to rewatch it because I watched it at 5:00 this morning.
I remember walking in this morning and you were laying in bed and I'm like, what
You
are
were-
you doing? It was like 5:22.
Yeah, she fell asleep on the couch last night and slept there. And she walks into this morning. It was like 5:15. She's like, "What are you doing? Why? And I'm like, I'm watching Miss Marvel. What time is it? Like 5:15. Oh, okay. I gotta go pee. She does her thing and it goes back to sleep. So, and like, I worked all day and it was a pretty long day. So, by the time I got home, I had listened to like a couple videos on the drive home, but I was like, man, I need to rewatch this episode before we do a podcast because I'm gonna be so not great. I can't remember anything, and the biggest part of the show, like my favorite character, like dies, and I was like, crap.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to the show.
Okay.
I don't know. All I can think of in my mind is the fight scene.
Yeah. So, Maniba and her mom have like a heart-to-heart in the show, which is like really sweet because I really like the grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I really like Maniba. And they have like a pretty good heart-to-heart moment where the mom, Maniba's like, I didn't want to escape you. I wanted just to escape like the drama around you. Because I think Maniba wants her grandma to move back to America with her.
Yeah, she tells her that it's time. She thinks.
Yeah. She asks, like, do you think it's time for you to move to America with us? And
Well, so let's lay the foundation of that. So
Okay.
Maniba sees all of these boxes of toffee
and
all over the
trash and-
place.
yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, this place is such a mess. What is going on? And she's like, why do you have all of these boxes of toffee everywhere?
Mhm.
And her mom is like, well, you always used to love it. And so I keep it here for you for whenever I've been waiting for you to come back and visit. But of course, like over time, I've just eaten them.
Mhm.
And then we find out that her mom like is having some pain in her legs and she's
Mhm.
having trouble like getting around basically, which is probably why it's a mess.
Yeah.
And then that's when Maniba says, maybe you should move to America with us.
Yeah. Which would be cool because I really like the grandma. And like the first scene we get with like her and Kamala, she's like, "You're a Jinn. That's who you are." And she like Kamala's like trying to freak out. And the grandma's like, "Listen, you can't change who you are. You are who you are." Kind of thing. And I just really like, I've loved all the characters that they've introduced so far.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I totally got sidetracked on where we were at in the story now. So I'm going to let you go.
Well, I have honestly, all I can think about is the fight scene. I know there was a couple things in there, but it didn't really feel like
that important.
earth shattering to me at the time.
Yeah. So they end up going back, I think like the next day. Kamala goes back to the Red Dagger's hideout.
She's like training there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that was amazing.
And he Walid,
Mm-hmm.
he gives her like this like vest, and he says, "We don't have armor, but we do have this." And like there's meaning in every fabric of this, like it's like a little vest.
Yeah.
And which is super cool. And like this guy that plays him is like so convincingly like, this guy is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And she puts it on, and all of a sudden like the glass above breaks. Mm-hmm. And it's the bad guys, the clandestines.
Yeah.
So he tells them to run. He like throws a dagger at this smoke thing. It just it starts getting super smoky in there, and like all these doors shut, and he starts kicking ass to all those clandestine people.
Mm-hmm.
He takes them all out, and then escapes with Kareem and Kamala, and then it's like a giant chase scene, which was like the best part of the episode.
Yeah, it was really
like
good.
This whole chase scene. It was pretty awesome. She like uses her powers like a lot in a couple of these scenes. Like she builds that giant like ramp to protect that family that was trying to start their bike.
She feels safe around them because like first of all, they know who she is.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to wear her mask around them, and they understand her powers and where they come from, and I think she just feels super comfortable with them. And so she uses their powers. Yeah,
and it's like not the weird like, oh my god vibe that you got whenever Kamran, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Whenever his mom was like showed up and like when they're at her house. It's like a totally different vibe. Yeah. You're like, oh, this guy is awesome.
Yeah. Agreed.
So it leads us to this giant fight scene. So they end up splitting up. Kamala and Kareem are like together, and then Walid is like on his own. Just like they're just trying to split everyone up. He takes out one of the guys, and then it's him and the mother of Kamran.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know her name, I'm sorry. But she ends up killing Walid.
Yeah.
So sad. Because I was like really connected to this character, because I was like, this is super interesting. Like he's going to be a really cool character to learn about.
It was kind of weird because he got stabbed in the back in like his shoulder blade. Shoulder.
Yeah, but she like went down.
Yeah, I guess.
She had like a long like curvy blade. Or like curved blade, and she like stabbed it like through his neck and down. So I was like, no, like dang it, like the one character I really liked and connected with this episode because he was super interesting.
Yeah.
So he's out, and then it's just up to Kareem and Kamala, and in this like little, I don't know, like a little bitty area.
Yeah.
And Kareem ends up killing this one of the people, and like then it's just two of them left, and the mother of Kamran. God, I need to know her name because I keep saying Kamran. She ends up taking her staff and hitting the bangle of Kamala, and then we get a trippy like she's falling through like I don't even know. It looked like she was like falling through the fabric of reality into like another time dimension or time or dimension. Like she's obviously in another time.
Yeah. Namja.
Namja. That's the.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're from Missouri, so we're going to have some issues like pronouncing certain people's names. We don't mean disrespect.
Yeah.
But I believe it's Namja.
Okay. Well, she hits the bangle.
Yes.
And then Kamala falls through this like rift and I guess in time.
Yeah. That was so cool.
And she like falls, but she like falls down onto the ground and she wakes up or like comes to and she's on the middle of a railroad track.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening? And then you realize it's the night of the partition where the mass exodus of India is happening. And you're like walking with Kamala. She's like still in her like garb that she's in
yeah,
like present time. And she's like walking around and it's just chaos. Like the families are like, I'm too old, like take all my money and leave, go to Karachi. And you could just tell it's like really sad. And like the trains are like piled on with people. Like it's a big deal. So Kamala gets on a train and then the episode just stops.
Yeah.
And cuts to credits. And we didn't get a post-credit scene or anything. So I'm hoping next week we get at least a post-credit scene. And then episode 6 we get a post-credit scene.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely left, I think, everyone excited for next week.
Oh, yeah. Episode 5 is going to be a good episode, I can guarantee it.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Which I'm glad because, like Ashley said, the first 3 episodes of the show were like a very slow, like a slow burn. And like depends on like what you like and like what kind of mindset you're in, I guess, like as a human. Like if you're like a kid or like an adult, like, I mean, adult like us, but
I'm curious to see, obviously, the next 2 episodes, but like how they wrap the show.
Mm-hmm.
And after we watched episode 6, to be able to look back and think on like what mattered in the first 3 episodes and what we really didn't need. Because I feel like there was some filler stuff in there that we didn't need.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I wouldn't say a lot of loose ends, but there's some loose ends that we gotta like make up in this next 2 episodes. Like Kamala's gonna make up with her friends, Nakia and Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's really about it. I mean, there's got to be some closure between her and her mom.
Yeah, and I don't know how much we're going to get with Nakia and Bruno because I think episode 5 is going to be all in Pakistan.
I think it's going to be half in Pakistan and then half
It should be all in Pakistan. I'm like loving the vibes that we're getting right now.
I think it's going to be 50-50. Or the last quarter of the episode will be back in the States.
Yeah.
Because it's like a run and hide situation. Let's get back to America kind of thing. Because the clandestines got to Karachi from Department of Damage Control's like max security prison. I forgot to say that. They broke out of the max security prison. And they got to Karachi pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was kind of like, whoa, they're already here. How'd that happen?
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. It was a great episode. Definitely my favorite episode so far. I would say this episode, episode 2, and then episode 3 and 1 would be my ranking at the moment. I really liked episode 2 because it was like about her friends.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Anyway, any last thoughts or closing comments before we wrap up this episode?
Not really. Let us know what you guys think of the show so far. I think the easiest way for us to communicate with our listeners is through Instagram and YouTube. So
Mm-hmm.
if you, whatever platform you prefer, Instagram or YouTube, follow us or subscribe there, because we can comment back and forth with you. That way we can know what you guys think about it. I try to do an Instagram post every time we post a new video or a new episode. So if you just want to communicate with us on there, let us know what you thought of this episode and what you think of the show so far.
Yeah. We get 2 more weeks of this, and next week we'll be getting Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah. So we will be doing a podcast of episode 5 next week on Wednesday, and then on Thursday we will be doing our Thor: Love and Thunder first reactions.
Heck yeah.
So excited.
It's going to be freaking epic.
Yes. So I listen to, like, we're podcasters, but we obviously listen to other podcasts. And I listen to the Friends from Work podcast, and they got to go to the red carpet event.
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, what
Big
a dream of that would be, just to go to like one red carpet event.
I would be terrified.
Oh yeah, I would be too. So cool though. They were they were talking about their experience and like how good this movie is. And they're like, it's pretty much everything we got in Thor Ragnarok, but ramped up even more. Like more crazy, more goofy, more heart, more love, more thunder. That's what they kind of said. Which I was like, let's go. Let's freaking go. Because obviously I love Thor. So if you want to know about their red carpet experience, you can go to the Friends from Work podcast and check them out. They're kind of inspiration of why I wanted to start podcasting. So I just want to say that.
Okay.
Anywho. Is that all you want to say?
Yeah.
All right. Check us out at the BTE podcast on Instagram. Check us out we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube now. So give us a like, subscribe, and let us know what you think. And we will catch you guys next time.